Alright, y'all, so today I want to do a very quick review of episodes 1 to 7 of the YouTube series, or Netflix series, I guess you can call it, The Amazing Digital Circus. So I've heard about this YouTube animated series for a while. It's kind of one of those things. It's like it's been kind of exploding everywhere. There was merchandise for this thing, actually, I remember, because I walked into like a Five Below and I saw there was merchandise for this. Now, I never actually saw the show beforehand, and I just guess I kind of judged it from its appearance alone because I was kind of just assuming, oh, well, this is probably just a kid's animated show. Looks very kid friendly and all this stuff. And like I said, I can totally see how kids can get into this. But I was really surprised. This is definitely not that. I would describe it as more of a psychological horror show that just takes place in a very much cartoony, colorful, and bright environment. And it really surprised me with the level of storytelling and depth here. Now, at the time I'm making this video, there's only 7 episodes out. From what I've heard, there's going to be a finale episode and an 8th one coming out. And if that indeed does happen, I'm definitely going to review the whole season as a whole. But that being said, my thoughts on the Amazing Digital Circus. This is a really great and interesting animated cartoon series on the web. It's really cool. The characters are all really interesting. The premise is interesting as well. The basic general gist of it is these people were placed into these headsets and basically without any knowledge of how they even got there or really too much of their real world experiences are kind of abducted into this place called the Amazing Digital Circus. It's essentially a place ran by a dude called the ringmaster, so to speak, Kane, who it's not confirmed, but it's most likely speculated that he is an AI, and there's many kind of clues and hints towards that. And basically, he forces these characters who are all, they take inanimate forms and stuff in this cartoony world that they don't really have necessarily a choice to choose over in these crazy things called adventures that kind of, I guess, test their things, learn about themselves. But there's like this running subplot between all these episodes in these adventures of characters, learning more about each other and also figuring out what this place is, the mystery behind it, and of course, how to get out. And it's immensely fascinating and it's really dark. I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to get out some of my pros and cons as we go along. Pros. For a YouTube, like I said, this started out as a YouTube animated cartoon series. This wasn't a Netflix series. It didn't premiere on a major streaming service. It wasn't until later. It was one of those things that it went so viral and so big. I mean, if you watch the first episode and the views, it's like got over 100 million views. That's huge traction. And I think absolutely the show deserves it. It creates a really interesting set of characters that have very interesting designs, all of them, and all of them have different personalities and interesting things to all of them. And that being said, like I said, you have to remember that the animation's really good. It's like basically a lot of like major shows and major animated shows. This basically the quality of animation, the CGI animation is on level with that. It's really well done. The voice acting is really well done. It's really well written too. And I think, like I said, the quality of the show is really good on the production side. And I wanted to mention this because, like I said, this started out as a YouTube animated series. It didn't start out as something that released on Netflix. It just became so popular that it ended up being on Netflix. And absolutely deserves so. It is a really solid series. I also thought, like I said before, I like the premise. It's this premise that on the surface looks very much, like I said, this looks like a kid's show. But it looks darker and darker, and we start to learn more and more about their characters. The characters talk with each other, too, to kind of get to the crux of their personalities, maybe change a little bit who they are. And it's really interesting. Now, there's six humans that take the place of take control of inanimate avatars in this world. There's Pawnee, Jax, Ragatha, Gangle, Ginger, or Ginger, if I'm saying his name right, and Zuby. And all of them have really interesting, distinct personalities. Jax is kind of the one that loves to cause trouble and is arguably at this point, in my opinion, the most interesting one. There's something to his past as a human. I can definitely sense that he did something bad, and we don't know what it is at the time of making this video, but it is something that's really dictating his whole personality and his decisions and his almost slight hesitation of leaving this world, and probably implies why his personality is like that. Really cool character. Pami is kind of the point of view character that we get to see this whole world through. I mean, she's the main character somewhat, and she was pretty good, and she's more of the straightforward, neutral character. Ragatha is a character that's very much the opposite of Jax in a lot of ways. She's very nice to everyone, wants to please everyone, but at some point, it gets to a point where, like, especially with other characters like Ginger, she basically has to eventually take care of herself and learn to grow in that way. And she's a pretty cool character. Gangle and Zumbi are also really cool. Zumi seems like the most down-to-earth, and Gangle, kind of seems like more of the innocent type more than Pommy. And then, of course, there's Ginger, who's kind of the out-of-the-mind character. He's arguably the character that a lot of the other characters confide in, weirdly. But it's a situation where it's like something clearly has happened to him, and it's definitely implied that he has a larger connection to all of this than the other characters. But he's kind of, like I said, his mind is in the scrambles and he forgets all the time. But he's a pretty interesting character. And like I said, I like all the characters, the designs, the world. It's pretty cool. I also, like I said, there's a lot of really good themes about character growth here. Characters grow. Talks about a lot of things and different feelings that emotions have. And I really like how the show gets to that deeper level. There's some standout episodes. I really like the episode focusing on Gangle because I can relate a little bit. I have worked in fast food. It sucks, and it's like a pit. And like I said, this kind of relates to jobs and life in general, and the basic kind of theme of don't give up your passion. Who knows, maybe we'll succeed one day with Gangle's drawing and manga. That was a really good episode. I also like episode 2 where Pami meets this NPC in his whole thing where the NPC finds out he's actually an NPC. He's not really a real character. Pretty crazy revelation, and a really good episode. Really enjoyed it. I also like the 5th episode's pretty good, and of course the recent one, which was the 7th one, which arguably is like one of the bigger ones, with this potential adventure that these characters all participate in, with them thinking that they're about to get out in the real world. And this is the one particularly with Jax, where it's like there's something in his past, something that we don't know about his character, something, of course, he's not telling everyone else, that is preventing him, or at least causing him to want to stay there. And it's going to be really interesting, of course, when we find out what that mystery is. And I also like the episode, too, where Pami confronts Jax and kind of tries to get at the core of why he's acting like a butt to everyone. It's a really cool, like I said, really good writing and really solid character development. Initially, when I was thinking about doing this video and I was watching it, the only complaint I could really think of was at the beginning of the series, they said, oh, we have the big Digital Circus, and we have all these other areas outside of it, and we haven't really explored that. And in the recent episode, like I said, episode 7, they do explore outside of that area. They explore like some of a beach area. And I was like, oh, okay, that kind of fixes one of the few cons I've had with this series, but I hope they explore more of the areas they established in that first episode outside of the circus, which, like I said, hopefully is the case. But yeah, I really don't have too many cons for this series. I mean, the animation, the CGI animation is really good, really solid. The premise hooked me in, and the characters were a lot more interesting than I ever thought they could be. And I'm really excited to find out more and more about this unraveling mystery, specifically about Jax, Ginger, what this world is. Do these characters even get out of the digital circus? It's going to be really fascinating to see, potentially, of course, potentially, we just don't know how all this is going to end. It's a really good and interesting, really adult animated cartoon web series. I mean, kids can watch this. Absolutely. And I mean, it definitely looks like a kid's show, but there's just, like I said, deeper things that's disgusting and dark stuff to it that I'm not sure a kid would easily pick up. I think that kids won't pick up on a lot of stuff in this series, but an adult will absolutely will. But yeah, I highly recommend The Amazing Digital Circus. It's a really solid, or at least for me, really good adult animated web series. I'm interested to see more of it as it comes out. But yeah, that's my thoughts on episodes 1 to 7 of this series. Don't really have any cons at the time. I'm thinking, I don't really have any cons about this series off the top of my head. But yeah, my thoughts on this series. Hope you have a good day, and peace, y'all.